Thank you very much, Professor Ryan. Uh, Dear guests, if I'm going to call everyone by his name, I think I'll finish the few minutes that have been allotted to me. So let me just say hello to everybody and welcome. I want to tell you something about just a few thoughts about freedom of the press, freedom of thoughts, freedom of expression. We lived in a certain world in which we believed, most of us believed, that freedom of expression and freedom of press is advancing and will always advance. If you look at democratic countries, like Western European countries, and you compare the media of the Western European countries, let's say in the 50s or in the 60s, Western European or American, and you compare them to what they are today, and I insist again on Western Europe and on the United States, Canada, then you'll see that the freedom of the press has advanced tremendously. Things that were considered not to be said, not to be done 50 years ago are free today. And I don't have to enumerate, I think everybody knows what I mean. We thought that the rest of the world will follow suit, particularly, of course, Eastern Europe, once it became free from the domination of the Soviet Union, of communist dictatorship. So we also know that Eastern European countries, just like Eastern Germany, by the way, were countries without real democratic tradition. I mean, if you take the period of between the two world wars, and you look closely at it, you will have to admit that governments might have been democratic. Let's say, anyway, the Weimar Republic was a democracy, but a democracy at the higher level, not at the level of the population, not on the level of education. They didn't go that far yet. They didn't have the time. They didn't have the opportunity to develop in such an extent. This is not comparable to what happened in Western Germany after World War II, because there the Allies imposed democracy and democratic education. And after the First World War, there was no such thing. So you can say that Eastern Germany, like Eastern Europe altogether, did not really enjoy popular democracy, the spirit of democracy. What's more, if you look at the 20s, at the 30s, even if there was free press, the free press of the time was not comparable with what we consider free press today. You had newspapers, yes, maybe they were free, but they were limited to their own country, to their own language. Foreign language newspapers, yes, they existed, but were rare. This was not as common as it is today, and it isn't even very common today. If you really look at people, what they read or what they hear. Radio, well, radio is technically limited, of course technically limited, hardly over all the country. You could hear it in certain parts of countries. It developed along the 20s and 30s, but didn't really reach the international aspect that we know about today. Other medias simply didn't exist as yet. Now, if you take a country that becomes a dictatorship like Nazi Germany, they had no problems to block the source of information of the population. The population in reality, not theoretically, in reality, had no possibility of getting any other information but that of its own government, or I should say its own propaganda. So this was partly because of the technical limitation of the media at the time. Now, what's happening today? I was, years ago, I was ambassador in Brussels. I was accredited both to the European Union and to Belgium. And when I came from Israel at that time, I was amazed by the openness of the media in Brussels. Here in Israel, we could listen to Israeli radio, see Israeli television, and that was more or less everything. I mean, those of us who knew Arabic could also watch Arabic television, not very good performances here and there, but basically Israelis were tied up to their own television, and we had only one channel at that time. I'm talking about the 80s and the 90s. In the era I come to Belgium, everything is open. In the Belgium, they have various languages. You can have a few channels of Belgian television in French. You can have a few channels in Dutch. You can even have one in Germany. But you can also see Germany, you can see France, you can see England, you can see Holland, and most people know all those languages. And I was stunned to notice that most people I spoke to would watch only their own television, their own Belgian television. They had everything at home. Everything was open. But the tendency, I'm not talking about everybody, of course, not everybody. There was no barrier, no limitation, no language barrier. Yet everybody stuck to his own. Why am I telling you this story? Because now we are witnessing a development that I, at least, didn't really suspect would ever happen. We go backwards. We go backwards. I didn't think this would be possible. I thought the more the media are open in general, in various, of a great variety, the less it will be possible to draw the media backwards. But look at the United States. Look at the war. I can't call it anything else but the war of the President of the United States against the media. Who would have dreamt of that? Who would have thought this would be possible? Then you go to countries that do not have sufficient tradition of free media, like Eastern Europe. So we see that over there, not only the freedom of media, but the freedom altogether is in danger. Democracy is in danger. So what we thought was already achieved, what we thought would be achieved in a short time, that there is no way back, seems to be different from what we have imagined. In other words, we have a gigantic task ahead of us instead of what we thought was already was already accomplished. I'm sure that to this subject there's so much more to say, and the differences between one country and one culture to the other are tremendous and deep-rooted. But this is exactly what you're going to discuss from now on. I just wanted to give you my thought, which is a thought of worry that the freedom of media and press is going backwards. Thank you.